السلام عليكم طلاب. محاضرة سابقة أخذنا الانترودكشن إلى الاندوكراين سيستم وأخذنا المين اندوكراين جلاند والهرمون ريليز باي ذيز جلاند. رح نبدي هذه المحاضرة بأول اندوكراين جلاند اللي هي البيتويتري جلاند. البيتويتري جلاند أو نسميها الهايبوفايزس. Pituitary gland location مالتها below the base of the brain, composed of two adjacent lobes. Anterior lobe اللي يسمينا adenohypophysis present in front of the head. Posterior lobe present toward the back of the head. Posterior lobe تعتبر outgrowth of the hypothalamus. It is a neural tissue. لذلك احنا سميناها neurohypophysis. معناته الهرمون are produced in a neuron and released by the axon of the hormone to the posterior lobe. The axon of the hormones, the axon of the neurons release the hormones into the posterior lobe. لذلك اعتبروها posterior pituitary gland هي outgrowth in hypothalamus. ليش؟ لأنه النيورون are present in the hypothalamus. إذا البرودكشن راح يكون عندنا in the hypothalamus, in the body of the neuron, released by their axon into the posterior pituitary gland. هذا الرسم هنا اللي يوضح لنا جهة اليمين عندنا هذا الانتيريور لوب contain عندنا endocrine عندنا cells that release a number of hormones. بينما البوستيريور لوب موجود جهة اليسار هنا نشوف السيل body present in the hypothalamus and the hormone produced in the cell body released by the axon into the posterior lobe. إذن posterior lobe أو posterior pituitary gland is a neural عندنا tissue. رح نيجي إلى الانتيريور. أيضا أكو عندنا connection between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary gland. But this connection is a network of blood vessels that arise from the base of the hypothalamus. وهذا يسموه the median eminences. إذن مع الفرق هناك عندنا cell body الهرمون present in the cell body in the hypothalamus لكن عندنا released by the axon into the posterior lobe. بالنسبة للانتيريور لا. And the anterior lobe is responsible for the production of the hormone. But it is connected with the hypothalamus by a network of blood vessels. This connection the hypothalamic, hypothalamic من hypothalamus, hypophyseal portal blood that connect the hypothalamus إلى الانتيريور pituitary gland. The portal vessel offer a local route for direct blood flow from the hypothalamus into the anterior pituitary gland. إذا هذا عندنا البلد vessel اللي موجودة allow the flow of the blood from the hypothalamus to the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary gland secrete a large number of hormones. But only 6 of them are well established, classical, and they are most important. Number 1, we have a growth hormone, اللي هو somatotropin. Number 2, thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. 3, adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH أو corticotropin. 4, prolactin. الجونادوتروبيك هرمونز، عندنا 2 جونادوتروبيك هرمونز اللي هي ال FSH وال LH اللي هي اليوتينايزنج هرمون. إذا عندنا most important 6 hormone are produced by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. The posterior lobe secrete 2 hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin, أو سمينا antidiuretic hormone. Secretion of the anterior lobe hormone is controlled mainly by the hypothalamus. إذا إحنا أكو connection كنا بين الهايبوثالاموس وبين anterior lobe. الانتيريور لوب release 6 هرمون اللي أخذناها. الهايبوثالاموس أيضا responsible for release of hormones that regulate the activity of the anterior lobe, either regulation by inhibition or by activation of the anterior hormone. إذا الانتيريور pituitary راح تعطينا 6 هرمون. مقابلها الهايبوثالاموس أيضا راح يعطينا 6 hormones that are released from the hypothalamus to the anterior lobe, either to activate or to inhibit the anterior pituitary hormones. The hormones that are released by the hypothalamus for the regulation of anterior lobe are, number 1, growth releasing hormone. Growth releasing hormone. This hormone will stimulate the secretion of growth hormone. Number 2, somatostatin. إذا إحنا somatostatin وين بنجينا هو inhibitory. إذا SS inhibit the secretion of growth hormone. إذا هنا اللي نلاحظ growth hormone is affected by 2 hormones from the hypothalamus. One is the growth releasing hormone that increase its secretion, بينما somatostatin will inhibit the secretion of growth hormone. Number 3, we have thyrotropin releasing hormone, TRH, that stimulate the secretion of TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Number 4, we have dopamine. أما dopamine أو نسميه نقول عليه prolactin inhibiting hormone. ليش احنا قلنا البرولactin released by anterior lobe responsible for secretion of milk, but this activity is inhibited by dopamine released from the hypothalamus. Number 5, we have gonadotropin releasing hormones اللي هي 2 that will stimulate the secretion of FSH and LH. Follicle stimulating hormone or luteinizing hormone. Number 6, we have corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH, stimulate the secretion of adrenal corticotropic hormone, ACTH. إذن لاحظت أن الانتيريور lobe is responsible for 6 types of hormones. These hormones are regulated, either activated or inhibited by the hormones released by the hypothalamus. نجي إلى posterior pituitary hormone. The hormones are not synthesized in the posterior lobe itself, but they are synthesized in the hypothalamus by neurons located in the hypothalamus. The hormones produced by the neuron body, released by their axon, and in the posterior pituitary node. Only one hormone is produced by a particular neuron. إذن كل neuron تعطينا one hormone. Enclosed in a small vesicle, the hormone move. إذا راح تتكون vesicle, move down the neural axon to accumulate at the axon terminal in the post-pituitary gland. The hormone is released in response to action potential in the axon and carried by the blood, returning to the affected area. التو هرمونز قلنا اللي released by posterior pituitary hormone are vasopressin, antidiuretic hormone, وقلنا هذا control of water secretion by the kidney, blood pressure, vasoconstriction. Oxytocin act on muscle cell, بالبريست, بالuterus. Hormone release رح ناخذ الهرمون released by the anterior lobe، ناخذ كل هرمون على حدة ونشوف most physiological activity of the hormone. أول هرمون اللي رح ناخذه هو growth hormone أو سميناه somatotropin. إن this hormone is controlled by two hormones. بالhypothalamus رح يعطينا two hormones، growth releasing hormone اللي يزيد الactivity of growth hormone، يعطينا somatostatin SS that will inhibit. من يشوفون دائما الخط أو السهم يكون مقطع معناته inhibition، من نشوفه solid line معناته activation. إذا growth hormone it is normally produced by anterior pituitary lobe, affected by two hormones, growth releasing hormone from the hypothalamus to increase its activity and somatostatin that will inhibit its activity. The basal plasma level amount of growth hormone measurement by radioimmunoassay in adult is less than about 3 nanogram per ml. وطبعا هذا يكون بالادلت بينما بالاطفال يكون اكثر او اعلى الليفل because in small children normal growth require excess amount of growth hormone. Daily output is about 0.2 to 1 nanogram in adult. Metabolism and inactivation of growth hormone occur in the liver. The half-life is 6 to 20 minutes. Secretion of growth hormone continues throughout the life. Though most growth in the body stop at adolescence. عادة المفروض growth hormone main function هو affect the growth of the body. At adolescence بنوصل إلى فترة البلوغ. The level may decrease slightly but never stop. Therefore, the function of growth hormone during growing phase to promote the development, enlargement of all body tissue. After adolescence, هذا اللي يكون بالchildren, growth hormone secretion diminishes slightly, but never stops. The hormone continue to function to promote protein synthesis, formation of other cellular element. However, exception راح يكون هنا in adolescence most of the body bone have grown as much as they can. فقط البون growth will be stopped at adolescence. Therefore, growth of the body stature will cease at adult stage. راح نبدي بالphysiological action of growth hormone. أول factor راح ناخذه effect on growth خاصة بالنسبة إلى البون. Growth hormone affect the growth of the bone and cartilage by deposition of collagen and mineral in the bone. إذا هنا راح يأثر لنا على الجروث by deposition of collagen and mineral calcium and other ions that will stimulate the formation. The process of bone formation is known as chondrogenesis. لاحظون هذا الرسم هنا إذا أخذنا long bone. يشوفون الجزء الأعلى هنا epiphysis. الجزء الساق اللي طويل هنا نسميه shaft of the bone. Between these two areas we have the epiphyseal plate. Epiphyseal plate موجودة between the deposition of collagen and mineral occur in this plate. When this plate widens, this will increase the length of the bone. راح تجي إلى ال process of chondrogenesis. The process of chondrogenesis is accelerated تسرع by the presence of deposition of the cartilage in the epiphyseal plate. The plate مثل ما شفناها بالرسم separate the end of the epiphysis of the long bones from the shaft of the bone. This area will widen by the deposition and this will elongate the bones. In this way, the stature will be increased. هذه before adolescence. At adolescence, the epiphyseal plate exhaust their potential for growth. ما ممكن أن تكبر أو تعرض بنسبة أكبر إلى أن توصل تأخذ قابليتها الكاملة لما نوصل إلى الأدولسنت. Consequently, ناتج راح يكون there is a union, direct union بين الشفت of the bone and the epiphysis. Therefore, the linear growth will be stopped. The effect of growth hormone on the growth, deposition of cartilage, protein metabolism depend on interaction between growth hormone and a polypeptide known as somatomedin. هنا أريد ملاحظة تنتبهون عليها شوية. لما أقول somatomedin هو polypeptide that will increase or activate activity of growth hormone on growth. لما أقول somatostatin, it is a hormone that will inhibit the release of growth hormone. Somatomedin produced by liver and other tissue. The principal somatomedin اللي نشوفه polypeptide known as insulin-like growth factor IGF number 1 أو نسميه somatomedin C. وأيضا عندنا insulin-like growth factor 2. شو الفرق بيناتهم؟ IGF-1 present in adult بينما عندنا 2 is present in the fetus. The major physiological role of the insulin-like growth factor is control metabolic activity and the growth of the cartilage. وقلنا ال IGF-2 occur during fetal development. الهايبوثيسيس شنو الميكانيزم؟ شنو دور ال IGF بالنسبة إلى الكارتليج؟ يعتقد theory growth hormone act on cartilage and convert stem cell into activate cell into a cell that are response to IGF-1. Then this will stimulate the circulating IGF-1 and make the cartilage grow. Effect of growth hormone on carbohydrate and fat metabolism. Growth hormone is known as diabetogenic. شنو diabetogenic؟ معناته يزيد لنا الجلوكوز in the blood. It will increase the hepatic glucose output and exert anti-insulin effect in the muscle. احنا الانسولين شو يسوي؟ يأخذ الجلوكوز affect the transport of the glucose from the circulation into the cell, into the tissue. هنا راح يكون بالعكس. growth hormone diabetogenic affect the release of glucose from the liver, and this is an anti-insulin effect in the muscle. أيضا it is ketogenic. Ketogenic معناته شنو؟ It will increase the level of free fatty acid in the circulation. إذا زادت free fatty acid in the circulation, this means production of more energy. فإذا increase in plasma free fatty acid provide a source of energy for the tissue, especially during hypoglycemia, during fasting, during stressful stimuli. Growth hormone also affect the production of insulin, but it will not stimulate the beta cell of the pancreas directly. إذن هو يأثر على الأنسولين لكن ما له تأثير على البيتا cell اللي هي responsible for the production of insulin, but will increase the ability, زي قابلية البنكرياس to respond to insulogenic stimuli that will increase the insulin secretion, such as amino acid arginine and glucose. This is an additional way. هذه زيادة الانسولينogenic stimuli. Growth hormone promote growth for the promotion of growth. ليش؟ لأنه الانسولين is anabolic effect. Therefore, it will increase the growth. A condition أحيانا يصير عندنا when the growth hormone release is very high, known as pituitary diabetes, occur by increase in secretion of growth hormone or a general increase in the anterior pituitary hormones that increase the blood glucose concentration. إذا هذه pathophysiological condition إذا زاد عن الحد الطبيعي ربما يؤدي إلى type of diabetes اللي عندنا هنا نسميها عندنا pituitary diabetes. metabolic effect of growth hormone. metabolic effect يشمل الإفكت على البروتين، على الكربوهيدرات وعلى الفاتي ماتيريال. Number 1, it will increase على protein synthesis in the body by a number of ways. Number 1, increase transport of amino acid through cell membrane to provide supply for protein synthesis. إذن أول شيء راح يزيد لنا transport of amino acid. Number 2, increase formation of RNA and messenger RNA، وأيضا هذه راح تؤدي إلى زيادة البروتين material. C, activation of ribosome required for protein formation. D, decrease the breakdown of protein. هذه كلها كانت إلى protein synthesis. على الكربوهيدرات it will decrease the rate of carbohydrate utilization. إذن يقلل من استهلاك عندنا الكربوهيدرات by the tissue. 3, على الفاتي material increase the mobilization of fat and use of fat for energy. إذا راح يسوي لنا mobilization of fat from the adipose tissue to increase their level in the circulating blood. Therefore, growth hormone increase protein synthesis, use up the fat as a source of energy, especially when there is a stress condition, when there is a fasting, when there is a hypoglycemia, and conserve the carbohydrate and level. Growth hormone affect metabolic activity, affect the metabolism of carbohydrate, protein, and fatty material. The effect of a growth hormone on this material are divided into two types of effects, the direct and indirect effect. هسه نشوف الفرق بين indirect وال direct effect. Growth hormone direct effect affect the epiphyseal growth by deposition of collagen and mineral in the epiphyseal plate. أيضا أخذنا affect increased protein synthesis by a number of factors. Also increase lipolysis, formation of free fatty acid in the blood for production of energy. Decrease insulin sensitivity, كنا anti-insulin effect, and sodium retention. هذه الفاكتورز اللي نشوفها وهذه الإفكت of growth hormone اللي سميناها direct effect occur during hypoglycemia or stress condition. Also, when the level of the IGF-1 is reduced and the level of insulin is decreased. إذن لما يكون عندنا كمية الإنسولين قليلة، لما يكون الاي جي اف قليل، راح يكون عندنا دايركت افكت. شو وقت هذا الدايركت افكت؟ during hypoglycemia, during fasting راح نحتاج إلى energy، فهاي الانرجي وين ناخذها؟ lipolysis اللي هي formation of free fatty acid in the blood to produce the energy. The normal condition لما يكون normal insulin level and IGF-1 is normal, epiphyseal growth also accelerated, protein synthesis also occur, but we have anti-lipolytic activity because there is no need for excess of energy. Also, we will have insulin-like activity. Therefore, during hypoglycemia, the direct effect of growth hormone is observed rather than the indirect effect. والسبب قلنا because insulin is low, somatomedin formed in very small amount. Therefore, the fat serve as a source of energy. Fat metabolism is promoted, increased by cortisol, which is released from the adrenal cortex, help in lipolysis. إذا direct effect راح يكون عندنا during hypoglycemia or fasting or stress condition, and under normal condition the indirect effect will take place. Now we'll have the stimuli that will increase growth hormone secretion. The stimuli that increase the growth hormone secretion are divided into three general parts. Number one, conditions such as hypoglycemia, level of glucose is low, exercise, fasting. In these conditions, there is actual decrease in source of energy. Number two, إذا بما أنه محتاجين إلى energy فراح يكون عندنا stimulation إلى the growth hormone. Number two, condition in which there are increased amount of certain amino acid مثل arginine، إذا زاد راح يزيد لنا growth hormone. Also, presence of protein material in meal بالأكل راح يزيد لنا growth hormone secretion. Number three, stressful stimuli. Stressful, any factor that affects the tissue in the body can be regarded as stress stimuli. For example, pyrogene, psychological stresses also affect and increase the growth hormone secretion. Other factors, we have the sleep-wakeful cycle. High level of growth hormone are detected during sleep, especially during the first 2 hours of sleep. The first 2 hours of sleep شنو يعني؟ in the non-REM sleep. فإذا at night during the first 2 hours the level of growth hormone is increased and decrease at the REM sleep and at the daytime. إذا بالدaytime والREM sleep the level is reduced بينما بالfirst 2 hours بالnon-REM sleep and night the level is increased. Another factor, L-DOPA, increase the release of dopamine, precursor of dopamine and norepinephrine, also have a stimulating effect on growth hormone secretion. Apomorphine, dopamine receptor agonist, estrogen, androgen, glucagon, all these affect or increase the secretion of growth hormone. On the other hand, stimuli that will reduce, that will decrease the growth hormone secretion in REM sleep, glucose, cortisol, free fatty acid, and growth hormone itself. إذا لما يكون growth hormone عندنا increase in high level هذا راح يسوي لنا negative feedback mechanism on the gland to reduce its secretion and return the level of growth hormone into normal level. Now we have a growth period. 2 periods in which there is a rapid growth. One is infancy, during required for the growth of the fetus. Number 2, late puberty, just before the stop of growth at adolescence. This is due to high level of androgen, estrogen. These will affect the closure of the epiphysis with the shaft of the bone. Therefore, if the level of these hormones are increased, this will affect the level of growth hormone. Now we have the control of growth hormone secretion. دائما من نبدي بالكنترول نرجع إلى الأصل، إلى الريليز of the hormone، وهو هنا من عندنا الhypothalamus which is responsible for the regulation of growth hormone secretion. Growth hormone release 2 hormones, growth hormone releasing hormone and somatostatin. Growth hormone releasing hormone will increase تشوفون اللاين هنا solid راح يزيد لنا الجروث هرمون secretion، بينما السوماتوستاتين شوفوا راح يقلل عندنا secretion of growth hormone reduced by anterior growth pituitary gland. In addition شافوا اكو another hormone اللي يسموه ghrelin. الجريلين بالأصل are produced by the stomach and affect food intake. But it is found that the hypothalamus also produces ghrelin, and ghrelin will affect or increase the secretion of growth hormone. إذا صار عندنا 3 types of hormone that affect or regulate growth hormone secretion. Growth releasing hormone, this will increase, ghrelin will increase the secretion, whereas somatostatin will decrease or inhibit secretion of growth hormone. In addition, we have effect of IGF-1 اللي قلنا insulin-like growth factor produced by the tissue، نادا نعطينا إياه by the liver، وأيضا عندنا affect the secretion. أيضا هنا الداش لاين اللي مقطع هو inhibition، بينما solid line هو increase the secretion. فإذا نعمل feedback control of growth hormone and secretion مثل ما قلنا. solid line indicates stimulation بينما dash line inhibitory effect. secretion of growth hormone undergo fluctuation يبدي يتغير بالchildhood بالyoung adult before it decline in old age. بالold age يبدي يقل but never stop. Therefore growth hormone is under the control of the hypothalamic control mainly by growth releasing hormone and somatostatin. ومثل ما قلنا الثird hormone is ghrelin. The main site of secretion هو stomach but also produced by hypothalamus and has a stimulation effect. In addition, it is involved in regulation of food intake. The pathophysiological condition may result from either decrease or increase in the release of growth hormone. رح ناخذ أول pathophysiological condition اللي هي dwarfism أو short stature. Dwarfism can be related to many factors. Number one, growth releasing hormone deficiency. إذا قل فإذا this will affect pituitary to produce the growth hormone. Number two, pituitary type of dwarfism occur in childhood due to damage in the pituitary gland. إذا صار damage pituitary gland, the damage will affect special cells, acidophilic cell that release the growth hormone. Or damage may affect all the secretion of pituitary gland condition. This condition, when all of the hormones released by pituitary gland are affected, is known as the panhypopituitarism, which can be treated by administration by giving growth hormone. Number three, in another type of dwarfism in children, the plasma growth hormone normal or elevated or maybe high, but the receptor for growth hormone are unresponsive. وإحنا قلنا الهرمون بدون combination with the receptor cannot produce its activity. إذا هذه بحالة growth hormone normal but the receptor are unresponsive, result of loss of function due to the mutation تغيرات بالgenes of the receptor. إذا صار change بالreceptor, therefore growth hormone secretion will be affected. This condition is known as the Laron dwarfism. إذا Laron dwarfism is a condition in which normal level of growth hormone can be detected, but its receptor are affected by mutation of the gene of the receptor. Number four, a marked reduction in the plasma IGF. Dwarfism may also relate it to other factors as genetic factor, reduction and release of other hormones such as thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone normally affects general metabolism in the body, as well as bone as muscle. Therefore, when the thyroid hormone release is reduced, this will affect the level of growth hormone. Number three, excessive amount of sex hormone in both sexes at early stage. بنقول early stage before adolescence. إذا صار عندنا زيادة abnormal increase بالsex hormone, especially estrogen, lead to dwarfism because it leads to early fusion between the epiphysis and shaft of the bone. هاي الكونديشن لما يكون بيها زيادة بالأستروجين that lead to early fusion بين الابيفايزل وبين الشافت of the bone. It is known as the precocious puberty, نضوج مبكر. The most common form of dwarfism in a human characterized by short limb and normal trunk. نشوف الجذع normal طبيعي، لكن اللمس الأطراف راح تكون عندنا short. هذه الكونديشن يسموها achondroplasia caused by mutation أيضا تغيرات بالجين responsible for the fibroblast growth factor receptor أيضا expressed responsible for cartilage and the brain. On the other hand, when the level of growth hormone is increased, giantism occur. إذا أريد أعرف الجاينتزم is a condition occur by excessive release of growth hormone secretion before adolescence. إذا الزيادة راح تكون before adolescence. In children, it may be related to tumor in pituitary cell. If the hypersecretion occurs after adolescence due to tumor, the condition is called acromegaly. Then giantism occur when the excessive amount occur before adolescence, whereas acromegaly occur when the condition after adolescence. In giantism, there is an increase in the linear growth of the body. إذا هنا linear growth نشوف زيادة كاملة كل الجسم. While in acromegaly, the increase is in certain organ, as the hand, the feet, the nose, the lower jaw, and some internal organs as the liver, spleen, and the heart, due to excessive growth hormone secretion. This will affect the protein synthesis. The hypersecretion of growth hormone accompanied by increased prolactin secretion. إذا شافوا كل ما يزيد عندنا الهايبرسكريشن حيزيد عندنا prolactin secretion. And in about 20 to 40% of patients هاي الزيادة لاحظوها بين 20 إلى 40 من البيشنت. In female, 4% develop lactation in absence of pregnancy. يتكون عندها milk secretion without عندنا pregnancy. In addition, the body hair is increased, and 25% of patients show abnormal glucose tolerance test.